Today we shall discuss about the atomic structure, modern atomic structure on the basis of Rutherford's model. First we have to discuss the Rutherford's model. On the basis of Rutherford's model, that means alpha ray scattering experiment, we can conclude that actually Rutherford concluded that there is a nucleus which is positive charge, nucleus at the center of the atom which is positively charged, and heavy mass. That means he concluded that through his alpha ray scattering experiment that the total mass of the atom is centered inside the nucleus. That means the total mass is gathered inside the nucleus. Now the electrons revolve around the nucleus in some circular pathway known as the orbit. So electron round revolves the nucleus. These are the suppose electrons. These round revolve the nucleus in some specific pathway, circular orbit known. But in this theory, here is the nucleus, but the total, actually he concluded from his alpha ray scattering experiment that the total volume of the atom, the maximum volume of the atom remains void, but the electrons has very much negligible mass as well as very much negligible volume. That's why we can conclude that the total mass of the atom is centered, is gathered inside the nucleus, and it is highly positive charge, and electron, which is negatively charged particle, revolve around the nucleus in some specific orbit. This is the actually Rutherford's atomic model. Now in the nature of light, we have to discuss about this point, nature of light. Now according to Newton actually proposed the corpuscular theory. Corpuscular theory, that means particle nature of the light. He assumed that the light is nothing but a particle, but the problem was that through this theory he can explain the reflection, refraction, all these particular properties of the light. But the problem was that it could not explain the diffraction and interference of the light. This was the problem, this was the limitation. So then came the Huygens, then came the scientist Huygens, German scientist. He proposed wave theory. In this theory, he proposed that the light actually propagates through space like such type of transverse wave. This is nothing but transverse wave. And this wave, in this wave, the velocity of the light is fixed. Velocity of the light is denoted by the, now we know that this wave has a maximum displacement on either side with respect to this axis. With respect to this axis on either side, this is called the amplitude of this wave. Now the next point is frequency. Number of oscillation take place in 1 second is called the frequency of that wave. So if frequency is denoted by the nu, then according to this equation, according to this theory, actually the velocity of that wave, transverse wave, is equal to nu into the wavelength of that medium, of that particular wave. Wavelength, what is called the wavelength? This is called the wave crest and this is called the wave trough. So the distance between two consecutive wave crest or the distance between the two consecutive wave trough is called the wavelength. So V equal to nu into lambda, where V represents the velocity of that particular light wave, nu is the frequency of that light wave, lambda is the wavelength of that light wave. So this was actually Huygens concept, proposed concept. But then came Maxwell to refine this concept. James Clerk Maxwell, he proposed that this is nothing but an electromagnetic radiation. If or whenever the radiant energy propagate through a medium particularly or in space, whatever may be, this is nothing but the electromagnetic radiation. This is the structure of the electromagnetic radiation. We have drawn is red color line shows the direction of the movement of the wave. That means the light wave propagates through space in this direction, suppose. Now, this is a three-dimensional wave actually. Blue color axis actually, and the blue color wave denotes the electrical field which is perpendicular with respect to the direction of the propagation of the wave. And black color wave also with respect to that, means suppose we have assumed that the red color denotes the x-axis, blue color denotes the y-axis, and black color denotes the z-axis. Then red color denotes the direction of the propagation of the wave, blue color denotes the electrical field which generates with respect to the perpendicular with this wave, and black color also on the z-axis represents the magnetic field generates with respect to the propagation of this wave, which is also perpendicular with respect to the propagation of this wave. Now, this theory actually believed that it generates energy continuously. Now, if it generates energy continuously, and also it believes that to propagate through a medium, through particular space, it doesn't need any medium to propagate. Now also the next assumption is it has a fixed velocity through space, which is approx equal to, denoted by c, which is approx equal to 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second. And also we know that the first assumption was it is nothing but the electromagnetic wave. So an electrical field and magnetic field are associated with this wave, So these are the assumptions made by Maxwell. So electromagnetic wave radiation, actually electromagnetic radiation follows all these properties. Now the lambda in meter, if we draw the lambda in meter, then 10 square meter is the long radio wave. This is the wavelength of the long radio wave. 10 to the power minus 2 meter is the lambda, that means wavelength of the microwave. 10 to the power minus 6 meter is this is the range actually, is the wavelength of the IR, infrared. And just after this visible wave comes, that means if the range of this particular is 4 into 10 to the minus 7 to 8 into 10 to the minus 7, and after this ultraviolet, 8 into 10 to the minus 7 is the wavelength of the red, and 4 into 10 to the minus 7 approx is the wavelength of the violet. Just after this it comes ultraviolet. 10 to the minus 10 meter lambda, and its wavelength is the wavelength of the X-ray. 10 to the minus 14 lambda, this is the gamma ray. 10 to the minus 14 meter, this is the gamma ray, wavelength of this gamma ray. 10 to the minus 18 meter is the wavelength of the cosmic ray. So all these are the wavelengths of the different types of ray. Now we know that C equal to, here as V equal to nu lambda, for light we can write that C equal to nu into lambda for electromagnetic radiation. Now C equal to nu lambda. Now nu and lambda, these two are inversely proportional thing, because C is constant at a particular medium, for a particular medium or in space the value is constant, 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second. So these are all the assumptions made by the Maxwell for the electromagnetic radiation. Now we can assume that already we have discussed the electromagnetic radiation, Maxwell's theory, but this theory also have some limitations. This theory can explain the reflection, refraction, as well as diffraction and interference, but cannot explain photoelectric effect and black body radiation. So of these two factors, photoelectric effect is included in our present syllabus slightly. Photoelectric effect, first we have to define what is photoelectric effect. For whenever light strikes over a metal surface, then the loosely bounded electron, that means the valence electron of that metal, can be removed from the metal surface. And that electron, if a receiver is applied inside the system to catch this electron, so this electron then generates electricity, which is known as the photoelectricity, and that electron is called the photoelectron, which is ejected from the metal surface if or whenever the photon strikes over the metal surface. Now, metal surface, we know that metal surface, which type of metal we can take here? Potassium, bitter cesium, rubidium, such type of metal can be taken in case of photoelectric effect, because all these are, potassium also can be taken, all these are the elements of group 1. Now group 1, and that's why they have very large size, so the distance from the nucleus to the valence shell is very high. So due to its large distance, the electrons, valence shell electrons, are loosely bounded, and hence by absorbing photon, they will be energized. Sufficiently energy will be required to remove or eject from the electron to eject the electron from the metal surface. Now these electrons are called the photoelectrons. So according to electromagnetic radiation theory, Maxwell's electromagnetic radiation theory, any amount of energy is sufficient to eject that electron. But here we have seen that suppose this pen is gathered by me in my hand and somebody want to snatch this. So a minimum amount of energy he has to give to snatch this pen from my hand, otherwise it cannot be escaped. So that minimum amount of energy we have to supply to eject that electron, photo energy, actually light energy, we have to supply externally to eject that electron from the metal surface, is called the threshold energy. This is known as the threshold energy. Threshold energy. And with respect to this energy, the frequency is called the threshold frequency. Threshold frequency. Threshold energy is denoted by E0, and threshold frequency is also denoted by mu 0. So a minimum amount of energy is required. This is the contradiction with respect to the electromagnetic radiation theory given by Maxwell. So the photoelectric effect shows that a minimum amount of energy is required, less than which the electron cannot be removed or ejected from the metal surface. So a minimum amount of energy is required to eject that electron from the metal surface. By absorbing a particular amount of energy, that electron will be removed and generates the photoelectricity. So these electrons are called the photoelectrons, and these metals are efficient to eject that electron because the valence electrons are loosely bounded in these cases, cesium, rubidium, etc. Now we can see here, suppose a cricket pitch. Wickets are there and a particular portion is drawn here on the pitch. So if an instruction is given that you have to strike number of balls on this pitch. Suppose there are two bowlers, bowler A and bowler B. Bowler A has the speed near about 80 to 90 km per hour. 90 km per hour. Suppose Harbhajan Singh, spin bowler. So speed is very low. Now bowler B is a pacer. Suppose Jasprit Bumrah, 140 km minimum kilometer per hour. But in both the cases, the instruction remains same. How many balls in a over? How many balls you can strike over this particular region? Now, that doesn't depend on the velocity of the bowler or of the ball, because the kinetic energy doesn't relate with this. You have to improve your perfection so that the ball can touch, can spot on this particular space. So this is called the intensity. Number of balls strikes over a particular surface, number of photons strike over a particular surface is called the intensity of that particular light. So light intensity doesn't depend on the kinetic energy of the ball, just like this. So that's why kinetic energy of that ball doesn't related with the intensity of the photon. Whatever may be the intensity, whatever may be the light energy, the intensity may be high, may be low. Now here we can say that, so this is the contradiction. In electromagnetic radiation, intensity is directly proportional to the kinetic energy. But here we can see that kinetic energy is not related with the intensity. Now, if any instruction is given that you have to strike over the wicket. Now we know that 90 km/h when strikes over the wicket, only ball is turning or something will be happen like this. But if 140 km/h a ball with this such speed when strikes over the wicket, then the wicket may be 2 to 3 fold and here. So wicket gains an energy, kinetic energy. So that amount of kinetic energy is related with is directly proportional to the energy of the bowler. Now here we can draw this. So the two conclusions are these. Number one, the intensity of the photoelectron doesn't related with its kinetic energy, rather it depends on number of photons of a particular energy strikes over the metal surface. So it depends on this number of photons. With the increase of the number of photons, because we know that each photon can eject one electron with sufficient energy, always with sufficient energy, that means greater than this nu zero frequency, threshold frequency. Each photon is sufficient to eject an electron from the metal surface. So number of photons equal to number of photoelectrons, and number of photoelectrons is equal to current electricity, that means intensity. So intensity of the current, photoelectricity, intensity of the photoelectricity is directly proportional to the number of ejected photons. So this is the graph, current intensity with number of ejected photoelectrons. Now kinetic energy, this is the kinetic energy of the ejected electron. Metal surface, suppose we have assumed this is the metal surface and wicket is the ejected electron. So that ejected electron, the energy of that, kinetic energy of that ejected electron is directly proportional to the, that means here also the kinetic energy of this wicket is directly proportional to the energy of the bowler. So here also the frequency of the radiation on which it depends, kinetic energy of the electron. But we have to supply a minimum amount of energy, the frequency of which is nu zero, which is called the threshold frequency, and above this if we increase the energy, that means if we nu increases, because with the increase of the nu energy increases, so if nu increases, then kinetic energy of the electron also increases. So these are all about the photoelectric effect. Now photoelectric effect cannot be explained by the electromagnetic radiation theory. To explain this, Planck's quantum theory is needed. According to Planck's quantum theory, we can see that energy of the, that means radiant energy of the any radiation, actually radiant energy, which is denoted by capital E, radiant energy, that means if or whenever a substance radiates amount of energy that may be absorbed by the other substance, may be emitted by the other substance, whatever may be here is emitted. So that amount of energy is discrete but discontinuous. Actually it is discontinuously in pattern. So this amount of energy when it emits or gets absorbed by the other substance is discontinuous pattern. So that amount of energy is called the packet of energy, and this packet is called the photon. This is called the quanta actually. This is called the quanta. In case of light energy, it is called the photon. So light, not only light, actually in case of any radiant energy, maybe heat, radiant heat. So any radiant energy like here light, so it is called photon. So that amount of energy, so amount of this photon, that means amount of quanta is directly proportional to the frequency of that energy. So frequency of the vibrator, that means if or whenever the system either emits or absorbs amount of energy, the amount of energy per quanta is directly proportional to the nu, that means frequency of that vibrator or that oscillator which emits or radiates that amount of energy. Now, so E equal to some constant into nu, and this constant is called the Planck's constant. Planck's constant, and the value of this Planck's constant is 6.63 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second. This is the value of the Planck's constant. Now we know that C equal to nu into lambda. Therefore, mu equal to C by lambda. Therefore, E equal to H into C by lambda. We can write this equal to H into C by lambda. So this is the expression. Now, if in case of total energy of the photon, that means of the quanta, packet of energy means one quanta equal to this equal to h nu. If total amount of energy you have to calculate, suppose n quanta is required. So n amount of quanta, that means n into h into nu. This is the total amount of energy. So this is the total amount of energy according to the Planck's quantum theory. So E equal to h nu for per quanta, and total, suppose n number of quanta is radiated or absorbed by the substance. So therefore the total energy is absorbed or radiated by the substance is equal to n into h nu. Total kinetic energy of the photoelectron, if the mass of the electron is denoted by m, then half into m into v square, where v is the velocity of that electron which is ejected from the metal surface. Now if we assume that total energy supplied to the metal surface is equal to h mu, that means this is equal to E, total energy supplied to the metal surface. Minimum amount of energy, which is called the threshold energy required to remove the electron, equal to h nu 0. So the residual amount of energy, that means E minus E0, this amount of energy will be converted to the kinetic energy of that photoelectron which is ejected from the metal surface. Therefore, h nu minus h nu 0 equal to half m v square. Therefore, h into nu minus nu 0 into 2 by m with square root is equal to ve. This is the velocity of the ejected electron we can calculate. Now, so by using this Planck's quantum theory, actually there are two types of nature observed in case of light wave. First is wave nature. Wave nature can explain the reflection and refraction successfully. Reflection, refraction, etc. successfully. Refraction. But Einstein regarded the particle nature of the wave, which explains the photoelectric effect. So actually, electromagnetic radiation is the combination of these two. Wave nature, that means light is nothing but the wave nature also shows, and also shows particle nature. So it has dual nature. So electromagnetic radiation is nothing but the dual nature showing by that particular wave nature and the particle nature. Wave nature explains this property, these properties, that means reflection, refractions, and also the Einstein regarded particle nature explains the photoelectric effect, diffraction, our black body radiation, etc. So by combining these two, we can assume that the energy of the photon can explain, that means if we assume that packet of quanta, that means the energy of that particular, if it is light energy, that particular photon can explain all the properties of the light which are shown here: reflection, refraction, diffraction, interference, as well as photoelectric effect. Now, on the basis of this, if or whenever, suppose sun rays, white sun ray, if it is passed through a prism, then a color bands actually observed with several color bands of the colors are observed. These bands of the color is continuous, merge one to another. Now this particular band is called the continuous spectrum. So colored band is called the spectrum, and the phenomena, that means the property of splitting the wave, that means white light to the different color bands, is called the dispersion of the light. So dispersion of the light is the property, and the different color bands are called the spectrum. And here in this case the spectrum observed is called the continuous spectrum. But if or whenever the element or any substance, the spectrum is obtained by heating that particular substance, then the element that or substance emits some particular wavelength or some particular frequency, that is called the emission spectrum. And the emission spectrum is actually, in case of atomic structure, it is very much important, emission spectrum. If or whenever then electron particularly jumps from higher energy to the lower energy, N2 level to N1 level. If or whenever an electron jumps from higher to lower energy, it emits some amount of energy, and that amount of energy has a particular frequency, because we know that energy has a particular frequency according to this Planck's quantum theory. E equal to h nu. Each and every energy is directly proportional. Amount of energy is photon is directly proportional to the frequency. So N2, from N2, when it jumps to N1, it emits a particular frequency, and that particular frequency is fixed for a particular atom. It is fixed for an atom. So this energy gap is fixed for particular atom. Suppose we are assumed that this is hydrogen atom. So hydrogen atom, that energy gap for hydrogen atom is different with respect to helium, neon, argon, krypton, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen. For any other atoms, it is completely different. So this energy of a particular frequency is only observed in case of hydrogen for this jump from N2 to N1. N2 is fixed here, N1 is also fixed. But in case of other atom, if N2 and N1 remains fixed, in case of other atom, the nu may be different, will be nu 1, will be nu 2, etc. and so on. So nu double dash, nu dash, etc. So it is completely different with respect to a hydrogen. Again, if in case of hydrogen it jumps from N3 to N1, then it is also will be different. In case of N2 to N1 it was nu, in case of N3 to N1 it will be suppose nu 1. So it is completely different in case of hydrogen atom, if or whenever the electron jumps from N2 to N1, and in case of N3 to N1. So with the increase of the number of orbit, energy gap for a particular atom is quantized, that means remains fixed. So that's why this type of spectrum is called the fingerprint of an atom. This is called the fingerprint of an atom, because like fingerprint we can judge the spectrum and can tell for which atom this type of spectrum is observed, because for hydrogen atom it is fixed. It can be obtained only for hydrogen, but not for it actually cannot be matched with any other atom. That's why this is called the fingerprint of the atom. Now we come to the limitations of Rutherford's model. According to electromagnetic radiation theory, actually for whenever electron moves around the nucleus, in some particular specific orbit, then it continuously emits some amount of energy. So during its movement, nucleus attracts this electron, which is called the electrostatic force of attraction. It attracts this electron towards it. It is called the centripetal force. And during its movement, it generates some centrifugal force, which balances actually a particular orbit, and that's why it moves around the nucleus with a fixed orbit. Now, during its movement, if it continuously emits some amount of energy according to the electromagnetic radiation theory, then this centrifugal force gets decreased. But centripetal remains fixed. As the nucleus remains fixed here, centripetal force remains fixed here. But as the energy of the electron gets decreases, so the centrifugal force gets dropped. Therefore, due to the presence of centripetal force, constant centripetal force, it actually shows the spiral pathway around the nucleus. Like this, and after a certain time period it comes over the nucleus, and hence no stable structure of the atom can be explained. So Rutherford's theory is failed to explain the stability of the atom. First, this is the first limitation. And second limitation, if or whenever the electron moves around the nucleus, according to the electromagnetic radiation theory, it continuously emits amount of energy, and the emission spectrum must be a continuous spectrum. The emission spectrum must be a continuous spectrum. But actually, we obtain the line spectrum, which is discontinuous one, which is not the continuous spectrum, but rather it is a discontinuous spectrum of particular frequency. We obtain a particular line spectrum. So line spectrum is a particular category of discontinuous spectrum. So why this discontinuous spectrum is observed, it cannot be explained by the Rutherford's model. So this is the actually all about the Rutherford's limitations. Now we come at the last, Bohr's postulates. So after the Rutherford's model, we have already seen the two limitations. Now Bohr's postulates. Bohr gave the atomic theory model, atomic model actually. According to this, Bohr's stationary orbit, actually nucleus, around the nucleus, according to Bohr, there are some specific orbits in which electron, when round about the nucleus, it neither emits nor absorbs any amount of energy. So neither emits nor absorbs any amount of energy. That means in those orbits, the energy of the electron remains fixed. That means quantized. So these orbits are called the quantized orbits. Quantized orbits, as the energy of the electron in those orbits remains fixed, and those orbits are called the Bohr stationary orbit. Now Bohr explained that which orbits can be called the Bohr stationary orbit? The orbit in which the angular momentum of an electron, this is denoted by the angular momentum, m into v is denoted by the linear momentum, is denotes linear momentum, into r, that means the radius of that particular atom, is called the NVR, is the angular momentum of the atom. This angular momentum is equal to some integral multiple of h by 2 pi, h by 2 pi, where h is the Planck's constant and 2 pi is also a constant. So in which orbit, we have to see in which orbit the electron actually follows this particular equation. Angular momentum of an electron is the integral multiple of h by 2 pi. So if or whenever this is maintained, in that particular orbit, electron when revolve around the nucleus neither emit nor absorbs any amount of energy. And the value of m, as this is integral, so 1, 2, 3, etc. and so on, and these are called the first actually principal quantum number. Principal quantum number. It denotes the size of the orbit. Size of the orbit. So n equal to 1 means first orbit, n equal to 2 second orbit, n equal to 3 third orbit, etc. and so on. So this is the Bohr stationary. These are the Bohr stationary orbit in which electron when rounding about the nucleus, it neither emits nor absorbs any amount of energy. Now if or whenever, so when it emits or absorbs amount of energy, for whenever it jumps from higher to lower energy level, it emits amount of energy. If it jumps from lower to higher energy level, then it absorbs amount of energy, and that amount of energy is also quantized. Suppose we have assumed that the N2 level, the energy of N2, En2 is denoted by a h into nu2 according to the Planck's quantum theory equal to h nu. So E into is equal to h into nu2. E into N1, that means energy of the N1 is equal to h into nu1. Now if or whenever it jumps from N2 to N1, the amount of energy released is equal to En2 minus En1, and that is equal to h into nu2 minus nu1. So we can write that del E equal to h into del nu. That means this amount of energy is emitted if or whenever the electron jumps from N2 to N1, and is absorbed if or whenever N1 to N2, it jumps from lower energy to higher energy level. Here N2 is greater than N1. So if or whenever it jumps from higher to lower, it emits. If or whenever it jumps from lower to higher, it absorbs same amount of energy. Now we can assume that in a particular orbit, the centripetal and centrifugal force remains same, remains constant. So these two balance each other. Now what is the, actually if we assume that the atomic number of a particular atom is Z. Now the charge of electron, and that is equal to charge of proton, is E. So total charge of the nucleus is Z into E. Now we know that electrostatic force of attraction Z into E, that means Q1. We know that force of attraction, electrostatic force equal to Q1 into Q2 by 4 pi epsilon 0 into R square, and we know that 4 pi epsilon 0 for a particular medium, it is constant. So we can write, in case of CGS unit, we can write this equal to 1. So Q1 Q2 by R square. Here Q1, that means force of attraction, is equal to Zd is the Q1 here, the charge of the nucleus. E is the electron revolve around the nucleus in a particular orbit. So total charge is Q1 into Q2 divided by R square. Let the radius of the orbit is R. Let the radius of the orbit is R. Here the electron is here. Now, so total attractive force is equal to Z square by R square. And the centripetal force is equal to, this is known as the centripetal force, and centrifugal force, we know that centrifugal force in a particular orbit equal to mv square by r. So in a particular orbit, these two balance each other. Z square by r square equal to mv square by r, and hence we can assume that Z square by r, so r equal to, actually Z square by r square equal to mv square by r. So m into v square equal to, cancel by this, Z square by r. Therefore half mv square equal to Z square by 2r, and this is called the kinetic energy of that electron which revolve around the nucleus. This is the kinetic energy. Now potential energy, if we calculate the potential energy of that electron in a particular orbit, we know that by definition, if or whenever a charged particle repels a particular opposite charge, same charge particle, then from infinite to a particular distance, to actually restore this particular particle in a particular distance, the amount of energy required, that means work done by the system, is called the potential energy. So we can calculate the work done at this distance, and that work done, simply we can calculate the work done equal to force into displacement. Force here, electrostatic force of attraction, therefore Zd into E divided by r square, this is the electrostatic force of attraction, into displacement, that is the r here, into displacement. Now this amount of energy, actually electron is attracted by the nucleus, so electron comes towards the nucleus, that means work done by the system, and conventionally work done by the system is denoted by the negative sign. So overall will be minus Z square by r. This is the potential energy at that particular point. So total energy of the electron in an orbit, E total, equal to potential energy minus Z square by r plus kinetic energy Z square by 2r. That means minus Z square by 2r. This is the total energy in a particular orbit. Again we know that from Bohr's postulates we can clear that mvr equal to nh by 2 pi. mvr equal to nh by 2 pi, from which we can calculate the value of v, that means nh by 2 pi into mr. So if squaring both sides, we get n square h square by 4 pi square m square r square. This is the v square, and from this equation we can calculate v square, Z square by, actually mv square equal to Z square by 2r, so v square equal to Z square by mr. Now equating these two, we get, that means number 1 and number 2, equating these two, 1 from 1 and 2, we get n square h square by 4 pi square m square r square equal to Z square by mr. Now by cancelling mr, we get r equal to n square h square by 4 pi square. That means by cancelling mr, 4 pi square m is square z. This is the actual expression. And if we consider the hydrogen atom and the fast orbit of that particular atom, hydrogen atom and the fast orbit of that particular atom, Now, if the electron resides at the first orbit of that particular atom, then n equal to 1, we know that value of hydrogen equal to 6.6 10 to the power minus 34, this is joule second, and pi equal to, we know that 3.14, m mass of electron, that is equal to 9.1 10 to the power minus 31 kg in SI unit. Charge of an electron equal to 1.6 10 to the power minus 19 joule, and Z here also 1 for hydrogen atom. Then radius of the first orbit of hydrogen atom equal to, putting this value here, we get 0.53 angstrom. So actually radius of the nth orbit of any atom can be explained by the radius of the first orbit of hydrogen atom, because this remain constant, for any atom, this remains constant. So h square by 4 pi square m square is equal to this R1 of hydrogen atom into n square by z. We can calculate the radius of any orbit of any atom by putting the n and z here. Now if we consider the value of r and putting this value of r in equation this Et, we can calculate the energy of the nth orbit, total energy, minus z square by 2r, 2 into r, radius of the orbit is n square, h square, 4 pi square m square z. So by cancelling these two we get minus 2 pi square m square into square, that means 4 z into z, that means z square by n square h square. Again it is negative in sign. Again this part is constant for any particular atom. First orbit of hydrogen atom, this is the first orbit of hydrogen atom actually. So this equal to, actually this is the value of hydrogen atom, first orbit of hydrogen atom, E1 with negative sign actually, E1 of hydrogen atom, and this equal to z square into z square by n square. This is the actual total energy of the atom in this particular orbit. Now this actually 2.18 into 10 to the power minus 18 joule. So first orbit of hydrogen atom energy is equal to minus 2.18 into 10 to the power minus 18 joule. So this into z square by n square. Now we know that 1 electron volt equal to 1 electron into 1 volt. 1 electron is 1.6 10 to the power minus 19. This is actually 1.6 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb into 1 volt. So coulomb into volt means joule. 1.6 10 to the power minus 19 joule. Therefore 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 joule equal to 1 electron volt. So this joule equal to this by 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19. So this will be converted to the electron volt, and that is equal to minus, if this will be cancelled, 1.3 into 10 into this is electron volt into z square by n square. So overall will be minus 13 point something into z square, this is electron volt, into z square by n square. This is the overall energy of the nth orbit in any atom. So this is the actual derivation of the particular part. Now if any question or doubt if you have, then place it in comment box. I try to solve this in particular video. So stop this.